Hey everybody, welcome to Capturing Christianity. My name is Cameron Bertuzzi. You can probably hear my kids in the background. But I'm here today for the first time ever with my brother, Trevor Bertuzzi.
Hello.
He's got a beard, as you can tell. And he's awesome. So today, well, in the title of this video, it says, Meet My Atheist Brother. And that's part of his story. That's part of my story, why I even do this channel in the first place. And we're going to be answering your questions today. It looks like we already got a super chat. So thank you for that, Caleb. We'll get to it in just a second. But we're going to start this live stream off. I want Trevor to tell like a quick summary of his story, how he became an atheist, because he and I grew up in a Christian home, very, very charismatic. We went to the same churches and everything. But then he became an atheist, and we had some conversations. And the initial conversations, I think both of us would agree, didn't really go well for either of us.
Yeah, they didn't. No.
Yeah, and so but since that time, like, things have progressed and things have changed a whole lot. We were even talking last night. We went out to dinner, and like this, I don't think would have been a good idea just a couple years ago. Like you and me doing something like this. But I think that we're both at the point where we can see value in like both of our perspectives. Like I can see value in your perspective, you can see value in mine, and so this will be fun. Well, let's do the. Sorry guys, I'm looking at this microphone. The microphone is like above us right here, so I'm trying to see if this is working out. I think it is. But anyways, let's get started with the story. How about that?
Sure, yeah.
So
So basically, I don't remember ever questioning my faith all as growing up and going to church. It seemed like full-on truth, and I was bought in. The thing that I was, struggling to buy into is really like going through the motions of actually reading my Bible and praying and like liking to go to church. But that all changed when I think like 13-ish years old. I started going to Houston Worship Center and just really found a good group of people, like friends that I loved to be around. And so I wanted to be at church every service that there was. And I really felt the connection there. That we had tons of great moments of really intense sort of interactions, if you could call it that. But we'll get into that, I guess. But basically, I never questioned it for a long time. What happened was I did see a couple of inconsistencies throughout time. Like you see the politics in the church. You see people doing things that aren't really consistent with Christian ideology and things like that. And so you just see the hypocrisy here and there. But that was never something that made me question my faith. And it wasn't that I was, treated badly and left the church on bad terms or anything like that. Really what it was is like, I worked at Apple. There were a lot of good Christian people there. And then there were a lot also of atheists. And we were all like intelligent young people that were really cool, and I had like great friendships there. And so that opened the door to like deep conversations and really hard questions about Christianity and about worldviews and morality and all those sorts of things. And just over time, like I was more and more not able to align what I knew to be my beliefs and baseline ideals and principles, and that goes for politics and religion, but basically they were kind of being challenged at the same time at Apple, and it's tricky. I married my wife November of 2011, and 7 months later realized that I didn't believe in God, like solidly didn't believe in God. And what happened was only probably about 2 or 3 months of finally getting to a point where I'm saying, I said, the truth shouldn't have anything to fear. God shouldn't fear my questions. All I want is the truth. I want to search for all that can be known on a high level and a detailed level. And so that really led me to science and realizing that the creation story, for example, is not so accurate according to science. If you put your if you put science at a level that I do, as far as trustworthiness and a good way to understand the universe, then that started to show me things that were inconsistent with what I knew to be Christian theology. And so that broke it down in a lot of ways. Politics broke it down in some ways too, where I just cared more for people than, I don't know. We don't have to get too detailed into that. But basically my values, my values were being challenged, and I was evolving. And so after some time of really searching and trying to be honest with myself in harsh ways, and praying too. That's the thing, is I was asking God, like, please just show me, because I want you to be as real to me as the sun is in the sky. I want you to be as real to me as anything else that I can experience on a daily basis. And so didn't really get anything, and so I was accepting of this sort of internal deconversion, official deconversion. I told myself in the car, I said, I don't believe in God. And I do remember actually like feeling a weight off my shoulders. I felt liberated. I felt at peace with that kind of decision, if you want to call it that, or that conclusion. And so, that didn't turn into a great life for a while, because it was an experience of feeling like I'd been lied to, or misled, or at least that the friends and family around me weren't as willing to question and dig deep into the issues or whatever. I don't know. And so that's kind of, is that enough, or should I go into like marriage and like where I'm at now? Should I go all the way? But that was a major turn.
That's how it started, right? Was Apple.
Yeah,
and
really
starting to question your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to point out that I think I wasn't able to see early on was the value in what you were going through and experiencing. And the value there is just seeking truth, like regardless of what you grew up believing, and how difficult that is and how much courage it takes to be able to do that. And I couldn't see the value in that. And so all I wanted to do was be defensive and just like, argue you back into the kingdom.
Yeah.
I didn't see value in like seeking truth just because truth is valuable.
Right.
And so I didn't see a whole lot of value in what you were experiencing or going through. But now it's like completely different. I think that we have a whole lot more respect for each other.
For sure.
And where we've come. Yeah, but why don't you talk a little bit more where you've developed or come from since that point in 2000.
Yeah, I think that's necessary. Yeah. So,
and then we'll get to some questions because they've already started to come in. And that's what the majority of this will just be Q&A. And these are like, I don't want this to get too deep. This is just like surface level stuff. Just like get to know my brother. Or high level.
So I do like to talk about the big high level stuff as far as what our baseline ideals are, rather than talking about, for example, politics, rather than talking about specific policy. Pulling back to the fundamental principles, I think, are something, in the same way with spirituality, I think we can talk about those fundamental principles or fundamental truths, or what we can understand as truths. And anyways, high level is good.
Okay, so I'll continue. Bring us up to speed. Let me say this too.
Oh, sure.
So people have noticed in the comments that we talk very similarly.
Yeah.
So if you ever hang out with us in person, it's like people, our friends have noted that. It's like we sound very similar. So it's probably really weird to hear both of us next to each other. But anyways, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to at least touch on the fact that you said like you were defensive, and I do see now once again that you were doing what you were supposed to do or felt like you should do as a Christian. And I totally understand it. What was and really appreciate it, because it is out of love, and I get that.
Yeah.
What was tough is like when you just make a major sort of life change or decision or whatever you want to call it, like I didn't know all the answers. Like I couldn't, even my style of like learning and being able to communicate, I have very bad memory and recall. I am not good with like reproducing details. So what I do is I'll absorb information and then put it into more of like a a framework that guides my principles, and so they stay vague, even though the details are informing it. So in that way, I feel like, dude, early on, and even up until like 2 years ago, I don't think I would be able to communicate really like what I think and how I got there. It's a lot of stuff. So anyways.
I should let you know that when you hit the table, it hits the microphone.
Oh, okay, my bad.
So,
yeah,
I should have told you that before we started. But
no worries.
Anyways, so bring us up to speed. How have you developed? I mean, because you listen to a lot of podcasts and like a lot of cool things. So you're not closed off to it at all, or like thinking about it more.
Right.
And to me, like in our latest conversations, I feel like you've kind of opened up and are like considering some different things now.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess if you want to put a term on it, let's not put a term on it. Let me walk you through what the change has been. So, the hard line, the answer for me was there is no God, there is nature. We can learn a lot about it, and let's grow to understand that. So my framework is built by the things that we can understand by science, because that shows us the history of humans and where we sprouted from in Africa, and the history of the earth, and the fact that dinosaurs ruled it for way more time than we've been here, and that the earth is only 4.5 billion years old, and that so the solar system hasn't even been around for more time than the universe has been here, or whatever. It's basically like building this framework of understanding the universe, and from a sort of moral and philosophical view, I was trying to build it with science, and it works in some regards. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's naturalism or whatever, science and stuff doesn't have to point to any sort of morality or philosophy, and it's really just a tool to manipulate our world for our desires. Really is science and technology really opens up the understanding for us to do with that what we want, and that can turn into an atomic bomb, or it can turn into purifying water for poverty-stricken people. So it is a tool and a way to understand the universe, and I still value that in major ways. But what I started recently opening myself up to is the fact that we, all humans, are having a very real first-person sort of experience through the world, and that their reality, like I can respect every person's reality. And it really comes down to understanding that we all kind of live by these stories. The story of who Trevor is, the story of who Texas is, the story of who our family, the Bertuzzis, are, and the story of what Christianity means to me. And all of these things are different for each person, really. Like you as a Christian will feel differently about a lot of things as some other Christian. And so I do put a lot of weight on the fact that it's a very personal and individual experience that people are having. And so putting more respect on that, and opening myself up to what truths can be pulled from other people's experiences, I think is really valuable. So in that same way, I really enjoy learning about other religions, Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism and things like that. They really have a lot of truth in them, just like Christianity does. They have a lot of truths and a lot of helpful, practical things that are very useful in life and really have let me grow a lot. So, really just being open-minded to the things of the world have made me kind of just love the world and what it is, humanity and all of it. I put my own meaning into that, because I don't think that there's any sort of inherent meaning to the universe, but that doesn't mean that we can't create the meaning ourselves. In the same way that there's no destination in mind for a dance or a song, it just is there to be. It's there to be a song, to be a dance. And I kind of think that the universe is kind of like a cosmic dance in that sort of way. So really the biggest thing is...
Who did you get that from? Did you make that up?
No.
Cosmic dance?
Yeah, no, I feel like I heard that from Alan Watts. And that was just about to bring up...
You're not that poetic.
No, I know, right? So, but like it
Neither
is...
am I. That's the only reason I know that.
Yeah. So that really comes from a lot of podcasts that were Christians deconverted and then kind of created their own sort of spirituality out of that. Mm-hmm. And to Christians, that may sound just like, well, anybody can make, I don't know. It just, It sounds hokey, but let me tell you, like Pete Holmes is a comedian that says I'm very in line with like his ideas for the most part. And he explains them in really amazing ways. So Pete Holmes for sure. And he's got a podcast, You Made It Weird. And then Michael Gungor, he's on the Liturgist podcast, and he has his own podcast called Loving This.
Does he still like identify as a Christian?
See, I'm not sure. I feel like
he was, and then he wasn't, and then he was. And
yeah,
he wasn't.
At this point, like he might say he's a mystic Christian or whatever. So that definitely pulls some ideas from Eastern religions, whereas God is not this separate being. In a dual universe, right? Whereas Eastern sort of tradition, as far as I can understand, is that God is the oneness of the entire universe. So we are all part of God. Every cell of my body is also a part of God. In the same way that each cell of my body is Trevor, sort of. You can pinpoint it, separate it, and call it a name. And say that's a different thing from Trevor. But at the same time, all-encompassing, I am made of these building parts. And so in the same way, you can take that to Earth. Earth is, by definition, all of the plants, animals, including us. It's all of it. It's the living, buzzing, very alive organism of Earth. And then we can expand that out to the solar system, the universe, and say, we can't live separately from the Earth. And so in a way, we can really say we are the Earth experiencing itself. And I think that's freaking gorgeous. I love that.
Well, and for both of us, we're both still like seeking and searching for truth. And so our both of our views are still developing in various ways.
Yeah.
For sure. Like my political views are all over the place right now. It's like I don't know what I think about so many things.
Yeah.
But I'm open to like trying to figure out what makes the most sense.
Right.
And I think both of us are kind of like in that vein.
Yeah.
How about we get to some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So someone asked who's younger. And so Trevor is younger by about 2.5 years.
I'm 31, just turned 31.
31, I'm 33. As of this recording. All right, so here's a question. This is a super chat from Caleb Jackson. Let me center it up on the screen so we can see it. Okay, hi Trevor, are you disappointed that there is no God? I.e., do you want there to be a God, or would you prefer atheism to be true?
Very good question. So, I am not disappointed that there is no God. I like the idea that if there was a God, that he would be super good, but I just don't know what that would look like. I mean, the Christian God to me wasn't like, I don't know what to say.
Just be honest.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to find it. Let me see.
And don't worry about like offending someone.
Yeah.
People are going to be offended no matter what you say.
Right, that's true. Okay. Would you prefer atheism to be true? I kind of would. Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
I think that's honest.
Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, I mean, and you don't have to put any more meat on that.
Yeah.
If you don't want to.
Yeah. I feel like there is more there that I feel like I could communicate, but I'm not sure how to say it. Are you disappointed there is no God? See, like I said, it was liberating when I finally got to that point because it felt like pressure. It felt as a big brother watching you, making me feel ashamed for shit that I don't feel ashamed for anymore. That feels good. I have a more loving view to all people than I did because I was, as a Christian, separating myself and saying, those are the worldly people. gay and trans people, for example, or Muslims or whatever, this big word that can scare and separate people. I want to get rid of those sort of separations and see all people as extremely valuable. And what I pulled from Christianity was really seeing every person as Jesus. Like, do you see a homeless person and think that is God embodied in that person, and they're going through some tough times? I mean, I think that's a valuable way to look at it, but it is still a story that I kind of understand is valuable for all of humanity, rather than kind of believing it to be true as far as like God being that person.
So this is an interesting question, and it's kind of somewhat related to the last one from Roger Marshall. Thank you for your super chat, Marshall, or Roger. He says, Trevor, is there anything that you now feel might make you question your atheism?
Oh, I was reading the other one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Is there anything that you now feel might make you question your atheism?
Yeah. I mean, if some figure came down to the earth and very clearly, communicated with all of humanity and could be detected by either our senses and or scientific instruments, I think that would be fair reason to believe in God. Yeah. Or whatever that being may be is, I would still go on the path of wanting to understand what that thing is. But yeah, I don't know what it would be besides something very clear and like cartoony, really, because what would it be? I mean, well, that's all I got. Yeah. What would it be? I don't know.
Well, we may get to that actually in the course, because someone I saw sent in a super chat, Cygart, and I interviewed him. He's a Christian. He was a biochemist, I believe.
Nice.
And so he grew up in a very atheistic home and eventually became a Christian because of science.
Nice.
So, and he has a question for you that we may get into. All right. So James Pullman, why did that happen? Pulled in the wrong one. All right, here we go. Truthfully, what percentage of your brother's content do you watch, and has it ever moved the needle for you at all towards theism? This is like the question I'm sure that everybody wants an answer to. How much of the content do you watch? I know that you watch some of it, but I don't know if you've so to put a percentage on it would require you to know how much content there is.
Right.
And so just to let you know, there's about 250 videos.
Okay. I've probably watched 2 of them and didn't subscribe to your channel until this morning.
Oh.
So, yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I am very interested in a lot of these topics, but I am searching lots of other content. I mean, there's so much out there that it's not...
That's fair.
Yeah. I really am just pulling so much from other places that... And even, that's part of the story, too, is actually California. Moving physically out of Texas, away from family, and separaring.
Yeah, and they
gave
don't
me
know
that
this,
time.
Okay. You didn't talk about this.
I didn't say that. Okay.
Yeah. So, how many years ago was that?
Mid 2016.
Okay.
Moved back mid 2019. So 3 years in California, in like east of Oakland.
And so just having some time away from family.
Yeah. My wife and I moved there, and
for work.
For work, yes. And it was tough at first. She didn't want to go, and it was really like I did it kind of in a terrible way and had to apologize for her after, because I kind of just yanked her there. But it really, we grew a lot from it, because it was a tough time that we got to a point where we were like really disconnected, and we both sat down and just laid it all out and said, we are a team that can fight for each other and support each other, and laying out all of the things that like really needed to be acknowledged, hurtful things that needed to be acknowledged, and saying like, let's clean the slate and love each other unconditionally and be curious about one another and dig deep in conversation and things like that. So really there was a big turning point in my relationship where this is listening to podcasts with therapists. I mean, honestly, I talk to myself trying to imagine what a therapist would tell me, and that's how I've like evolved so much, really, because I would love to have a therapist, but I didn't really ever seek one out because it never felt super needed. But clearly I was like on a search to better myself in a lot of ways. And so, giving myself those hard truths, being really honest about, am I perceiving something that is incorrect here? Am I putting wrongful expectations on her in this situation? Did I blow up in anger, and did I apologize for it? Things like that. So California was really a turning point where she couldn't really confide in it's weird to say, because she couldn't really confide in her family and friends in person very often. I think that helped us look to each other and be forced to work it out. So I'm really thankful that it happened, and apologize for like the chaos that it did cause. But overall, that was a huge step for me to once again detach and like really try and find myself, find my philosophy, and find my deep ideals that I can stand by as a person who values like truth and having a clear moral philosophy that I feel like I can communicate and connect to other things in my life.
All right, here's a question from Joshua LeClaire. Thank you for your super chat, Josh. He says, on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being I know God exists, 7 being I know God doesn't exist, 4 being I don't know if God doesn't exist, what would get you closer to a smaller number? Praying for you both. So this is kind of like the other one. So
okay.
If you need to just reiterate that or talk about it more. Or
So the big thing for me is how we define God. I mean, if I grew up in India, I very well might still be a theist, even valuing science. I mean, the Dalai Lama believes in science. And so I think if we define God in Western terms, and my understanding of that is in a dual universe with a separate being that has a plan for all of our lives, and set this up as a stepping stone into an eternal afterlife, that just doesn't, seem to make sense to me. But if we can define God as all of being itself, all of the universe, the I am that I am, literally I amness, that's a Pete Holmes thing. It's all of it that's happening. I really see the universe as being just at the baseline is just connections, a web of connected energy and matter. And I think, some people have talked about, you could kind of consider that consciousness, kind of like a collective consciousness, but I still don't think that means God in the terms that we're using it, So
it kind of depends on what God.
It really does.
Well, yeah.
But so if we're using God in Western terms, I'm a 6 or 7. If we say that God is the Eastern style God, then 4 being I don't know if God doesn't exist.
Would be
then it'd
one.
be a 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
I open myself up more to those ideas because I see them being consistent with science and with morality and all those sorts of things. They seem to coincide really well.
All right, so here's a question by the guy I mentioned earlier, Cy Gart, who I've interviewed on the channel before. So if you guys are watching this and you're interested in seeing my interview with him, just check the archives. So Cy Gart asks, have you read any books by Christian scientists like Francis Collins, Alistair McGrath, etc.? Do you know about Christians who accept all of science like BioLogos or the American Scientific Affiliation?
So no, I'm pretty terrible at reading, honestly. So what I really do is watch a lot of documentaries. I listen to a lot of podcasts, which are authors that at least get into the subject matter. But I'm looking for ideas at a high level. And it's not that, look, I want to read more. I think I should. And I did buy a few books since you mentioned it. I was like, I guess I should.
You should do audiobooks.
Yeah. Oh, actually, so I did have Audible for 2 years and got through probably 25 books. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But And yeah, a few of them were like Christopher Hitchens and stuff, but really it was like Jurassic Park and World War Z, I think.
Which there's nothing wrong with fiction. Like fiction
exactly.
Fiction is great.
So, but that's the thing is like I pull content from all over the place and want to put it together into my framework, like I said, of these bigger ideas that point to some truth. So, I hate to say something like this, reading a book like that, I can't say that I'm really interested in a very Christian worldview. I will pull some things from Christianity and be loving to my Christian friends and family, understand what it means to them and what it meant to me at one point, and the valuable truths that you can pull from it. But at the end of the day, it's just like doesn't vibe with me. I don't know. I just don't see it really making me want to read it.
Okay. Let's scooch down. There was a couple more questions that came in. Yeah, here we go. All right, here's one from Kemuel Joseph. I think that's how you pronounce that. Hi, Trevor. Do you think that Christianity was something that could be invented by humans? As you read about other religions, is there any difference?
Yeah. I think it was invented by humans, but all things are. I go back to that we all live by stories, and mythology is still valuable stories to understand our world. And sometimes it's metaphorical, sometimes it's very literal, and but they're all stories. So I really think, humans could have easily invented a religion.
Well, I mean, and Christians have to believe that too. Like Christians believe that Islam was invented.
Yeah. As you read about other religions, is there any difference as far as inventing it? Do you think?
Yeah.
Or in any way?
It's difficult to see what he's trying to get at.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, does one seem more plausibly invented? Maybe, or like does one? Yeah. Or is it less difficult?
Scientology and maybe Mormonism.
Those seem a little bit
more obvious. But that's. Yeah.
Anyways. You can end there. Okay. Omar El Corey. Brother Trevor, what is the truth you found in Hinduism and Buddhism that you didn't find in Christianity?
Oh gosh, so this is where I like probably should have like read up more. Because I don't think I can communicate it in the ways that I've received it. I receive it at a very vague high level. I'm not trying to be a Buddhist. I'm not trying to be Hindu, and so I pull the oneness of the universe from those ideologies. I pull mindfulness. I pull meditation. The practicing of like love and respect for all of nature, including plants, animals, and ourselves. Self-love. I mean, there's a lot of ideology that came. I don't know if it's ideology, but there's a lot of like valuable practical help that I found in. Things like mindfulness, and mindfulness came from, I think, Buddhism, but maybe mixtures of all those religions. But yeah, it's really, really valuable.
All right, here's a question from Jadon Havener. Thank you for your super chat, Jaden. When did you start to have doubts and questions? How did Christians respond? Yeah, that's a really good one.
What do you think
did they help and give you answers? What do you think would have helped? That's
very interesting.
Very good questions.
Yeah. So when did you start having doubts? You
mentioned that at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we can say that. Like, if you want to
right.
watch the whole stream, if you're just coming to this, then you may not have heard the beginning. But he mentioned back in about 2011.
Yeah,
so that's when it started.
I didn't. Yeah, it happened probably in a span of 3 months of just once the question came up that I was okay to search, or I told myself that it was okay to search. Within 2 or 3 months, I had kind of made my mind up, and I gotta say, I don't think I really relied on questioning Christians on this information, because I had all the stories. I felt like I was the one, defending it at Apple for a good year and a half, explaining Christianity through these conversations, and it was when I didn't have the answers, I didn't necessarily trust anybody else to give me straight answers, because like I said, it felt like I'd been lied to, or at least misled. And so it's like, how much are you going to really...
Well, I do remember, I had someone meet with you.
Yeah,
and so
I thought that
Craig.
was like after the fact, right?
Yeah, it was later on. But I think that's worth mentioning that you did meet with people.
Yes.
But that was sort of after you had already kind of made up your mind. But you did meet with people. So how did those conversations go?
They didn't really always go great because it was a debate of ideas that are very, complex. And so, and once again, I was like new to it, discussing it with people that were very like well versed in scripture and stuff like that. So it was approaching the situation knowing that I kind of had to do it. All of my family wanted to try their best, and
including me.
And yeah. And so I knew I was going to approach it like protective of myself and defensive of myself, saying I need to be able to believe this inside of me, not have you tell me that this thing should be believable or whatever. So yeah, I was like definitely defensive, but at the same time, I think they were like cordial and really trying to get to the details of how we know what things are true and stuff. And, but yeah, none of them really, tweaks the needle or whatever. So
just one more reminder to watch.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Watch the table. All right, here's a question.
I want to slam the table.
Okay, question from Damagog. Eastern Monism is inherent. So this may not make a whole lot of sense even to me. Eastern Monism is inherently contradictory. If separateness is an illusion and there are no ultimately individual minds, selves, persons, who is having this illusion?
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting.
Plus, true love requires a true other.
Okay, right. So I love this question because it really hits on, the Eastern sort of ideas that I'm like really enjoying hearing about on these podcasts that I've mentioned. So let's see. Eastern inherently contradictory. Okay, so separateness essentially. Yeah, who is having this illusion?
Yeah, so, if separateness is an illusion and there is no ultimately individual mind, selves, persons, who is having this illusion?
I think that Eastern monism would say that is God. We are all God interacting with each other at all levels.
Well, I think what he's trying to ask is like, do you?
Yeah. It's who is this awareness behind the ego, false self?
Yeah, if each person is having an illusion of being separate from God, then who is having the illusion?
Who is having the illusion? Yeah, I don't know. True love requires a true other. So, like I said, the idea of non-duality and oneness, I think, doesn't take away the idea that things can be different, things can change, and things can interact with each other. I guess I'm saying things, and that's separating. But it's really that it's the whole thing is dynamic and not the same. It is changing. You know what I mean? So you'd have to kind of allow yourself to define God in those terms. And there's people that will be able to answer that sort of question for you a lot better. I'm at the point where I'm taking what I want from these philosophies and saying I don't get all the rest, and that's fine.
Yeah. All right, from Carmel Crunk. She says, I highly recommend Christian Idealism's Quantum Hermeticism series.
Nice. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Idealism. I know what Christian idealism is. Christian idealism is the idea that there is no sort of separate world apart from God. Mm-hmm. So it's all, there's only one type of substance, I think. And I guess if you want to call it an analogy, is that what's happening here is kind of happening in the mind of God. Not that it is God, but that it's happening in the mind of God. So it's not like separate, it's not a distinct, substance from God himself.
Yeah, very interesting.
There's Christians who believe that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Christians who are idealists, and they think that there's just one kind of substance.
And that's non-duality, right?
Yeah, that would be So non-duality.
That's cool.
Some of these terms get a little much. All right, here's a question. Silgefredo Sarabia. If there was a God, hang on, let me center this. If there was a God, would one be okay having to live without the other after this life, or can one of you not accept that to be the case if there is a oneness?
Would one be okay with having to live?
Does that make sense to you?
I'm not exactly, but I think I know where it's kind of going. So, or at least like losing somebody, like death. We're going to talk about death. Would one be okay with having to live without the other? What is the one?
After this life.
One of you and me?
Or can one of you not accept that to be the case if there's a oneness? See,
okay. So basically, like if I believe in the oneness of the universe, then would I be okay dying? Okay. I don't know. I can't get there.
Okay.
But so, I mean, I can talk about that though. I think death is actually something that we see in a weird way, and I view it differently now, and I like my view. So death is beautiful because it is a part of life. Everything dies. Everything changes. Everything is on its own sort of time frame as to what we call its life and death. And so,
do you want to die right now?
I don't want to die right now. I like existing. I like being, and so I want to experience, all that I can. And but the point
I
is,
only
that,
asked that question because I know that you're not depressive at all.
Oh, no,
you don't experience any depression.
No, luckily I do not.
Yeah. I wouldn't ask that if you did.
Yeah. but yeah, so it's, I mean, it really is looking at nature and the way that it recycles molecules and atoms and everything. I mean, it really is pretty beautiful. If you the more you dive into it, the more beautiful it becomes to me. I mean, I would always hear those things of like basically discounting like science because it tries to explain everything and that it makes it too heady and too logical and things. I mean, I find that to be beautiful to understand more about the flower and how it works and why it blooms, why it's colorful, things like that I think are gorgeous. And then the fact that it dies and what it'll fertilize for the next living thing. I think that's beautiful. And so I think we can see death differently if we kind of choose to. But in the oneness, it would be that this compiled energy of Trevor is dispersed back into the universe, just as I was before I was born, and it's really cool.
I was gonna say, oh yeah. So, have you looked into any near-death experience stuff?
A little bit.
There's some Christian apologists who do that sort of thing. I'm not one of them, and I don't really know what to think about them.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, there's some really good evidenced cases that for people who were very close to death, had experiences that really are difficult to explain, like coming out of their body, being able to read numbers on like the top of some instrument in a hospital room, and getting the number down like exactly. Stuff like that I think is kind of difficult to explain. I don't really know what to do with those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really interesting and compelling.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the universe is seemingly miraculous by itself. I think what I've learned from nature is already gets me to a point where I'm like, this is crazy, and we can't get it all. I mean, even like matter and energy that we can detect is what 25% of all things as far as we know, considering dark energy and dark matter.
Wait, what?
All of matter and energy that we can detect and interact with, is some small percentage. I'm pretty sure it's like a quarter of all the other stuff in the universe, meaning that we can detect the gravity of dark matter in galaxies. And what that means is that we don't know what this matter is, but it's having a gravitational effect. And so it's this unknown thing that we're just calling dark matter for now until we find out more. So that's just an example of the fact that there is mystery, and that's gorgeous, and we can keep searching, and leave an open mind for ourselves as well. So.
Yeah, all right, let's move on. Here's another question. David Johnson. Thanks for your super chat, David. Trevor, thanks for doing this. What do you think about the person of Jesus? And I guess we'll have to preface that by saying, like, as described in the Bible.
Yeah, I think he was awesome. I think that he should be your best source of how to be, I guess, in a lot of ways, as far as I can tell. I mean, for Christians, I'm talking about, like...
He's a good example.
Yeah, he's a great example. And, I mean, you know, American Christians don't always seem Christ-like. So be sure that you're living like Jesus and loving like Jesus and flipping tables like Jesus and caring for the poor and sick, trans people, black people. All people matter.
But Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
All right, Roleplay Cafe says, "Hi, Trevor and Cameron. Cameron, in your video, what videos in your content would you recommend to Trevor?" I would recommend them all to you.
Nice. Okay. Took me a while.
No, but one that I think that you would enjoy is the one I mentioned earlier by Cy Gart, who he's a retired biochemist. And so his story is just really interesting because he came from a very, very strong atheistic background. Like, his parents, I think, are like Russian. And so it's like, it was very anti-theistic in his home. And so stuff that he started to find in quantum mechanics and some other areas led him away from his, like, materialistic view of the world. And so eventually he came to embrace Christianity. So he might be someone, you know, you either listen to or just... He has a book out about his story and stuff too.
Nice.
That I read while I was
So what are the videos? How long are they normally? And it's an interview?
It's an interview, and I think that one probably, most of my interviews are between 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Cool.
So
yeah, that's a good amount of time for them to open up at least into.
What you should do, if you don't do this on YouTube already, is like turn on double speed. Have you discovered that yet?
I've tried that. Some videos I definitely
Some
do.
videos you can, but some people just talk too fast.
Yeah.
Like trying to listen on double speed to like Ben Shapiro or something would just be impossible.
For sure.
So, but that's something you could, like, even if it's not double speed, like 1.5. And that way, when you're listening to a video, you know, you can get through it a whole lot quicker.
Yeah, luckily at work, I'm able to do my work and listen to podcasts and stuff at the same time. So that's really, and then my drive to work used to be so long. So, yeah, both of those were major opportunities to absorb information.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's move on. This question from Ben Rippey. Is there anything that would convince you to be a Christian? Some of these are getting a little repetitive. So if you want, you don't have to expand on what you've already said about that.
Yeah. It's all there.
What do you mean? You mean we've already talked about it?
I've already talked about it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so questions about, like, you know, what would convince you to become, or, to believe that God exists or to become a Christian. We've kind of already talked about that in the earlier part of the video.
But, I mean, did they, like, pay for this question?
They did.
Okay, so...
Because you said you need some, like, specific person to come down.
Yeah, some sort of being. He could be a being. Like, why couldn't he make himself to be a being and prove it?
Well, he did in Jesus. But
we need another. Clearly, we need another.
Well, so tell me, why couldn't you just explain that person that comes to you as like some crazy person? You know.
Well, that's the thing.
Why would that be the proof for you?
Well, it wouldn't be a person. I would need it to be some like
ghost?
Miraculous.
But why wouldn't you just explain that as like a hallucination or something like that?
Yeah. Well, so I would want it to be scientifically like evident for all people. Like, for example, if literally in space there was a head that came down and like
everybody could see it,
was orbiting, and he's yelling, "I am the true God!" Like that would. Oh, sorry.
You got a little too loud.
But I mean, something crazy that we could really interact with. Like, come on. So we're all interacting with each other. We're all discussing. I need you here, bud. If you're real.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Here's a question from Horatio Casillas. Hey man, what are your moral values rooted in, and how do you know that those values are appropriate?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, most of them were probably rooted in Christianity because of how I grew up. But the fact of the matter is, some of those things were toxic. Some of my morals were toxic to other people and to myself. So I had to take an honest look at what was valuable to me and to the people around me as to how I could go through the world in a way that I was happy with. And what that means is finding those baseline priorities and what I find important. So I value nature, which includes humans and our real experiences and our real suffering. And so most of my morality comes out of the idea of harm to other people. And it just can kind of expand from there. Mostly, I think that's mostly rooted in harm to other people. But yeah, it's in a lot of things. I mean, like I said, I take truths from all sorts of religions and philosophies and atheists alike. You know, scientists and atheists can absolutely and do absolutely create their own sense of morality. And what that is based in is in reality. They try their hardest to be honest about what's happening to themselves and other people. And so, yeah, we can get a very clear set of morals from reasonable sort of discussion and consideration for human rights and harm to other people. So I think that goes from morality to politics and everything.
All right, I'm gonna try to get through some more of these questions because we'll be here for probably another 30 minutes or so. So for another question from Roger Marshall, I think he sent in another super chat earlier. So thanks again, Roger, for sending this in. If everything is one, there is no separate self to reflect on it or conclude anything about it. Ergo, monism is logically impossible. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's tough to explain, and people definitely can explain it better than I can. But how I understand it is similar to, and I've mentioned this, similar to my body. The fact that my fingernail can go and touch my other elbow are two things interacting with each other that are really one thing. It's just a matter of what you want to call, where you draw the line in what you're calling a thing. That's where we get caught up. That's where the illusion is that this is all one thing and that it's got differences. We are all one human race, and yet we all have these little differences. I mean, I think that that's logically consistent to say that God can interact with himself. How about that? God, the universe, can interact with itself. I don't have any problem with that,
All right, question from Jeff. What scientific topics or evidence led you away from Christianity?
Evolution.
Yeah, you said that at the beginning. It's like the first chapters of Genesis were inconsistent with what you found in science.
Yeah. Right? I mean, evolution was such a major one because in Christianity, there's such this idea that humans are the ultimate God-like child, or whatever, God-like being. Yeah, created being. And that we, had direct connection to God and stuff like that. Where was I going with that? So that is really taken away quickly. I mean, at least it was in my view at the time. Mm-hmm. There are Christians that believe in evolution. I totally get it now. But it was a stark contrast to say, no, all animals, all plants, all fungus evolved on this earth through a process that we can see through DNA and fossils all around the world. The evidence is very clear and consistent, and we can turn back the tables on the movements of the continents and the evolution of all sorts of different creatures and mass extinctions and why they occurred and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's fair and good to see people as animals, but hold on. So it's that you should see us as animals in the way that it's valuable to understand animals. And it's that we should elevate the idea of animals and plants and the natural world to a place of respect alongside us. And that as far as I know, also coincides with Eastern sort of religions, where it's this all-encompassing oneness where it should all be respected as a part of the universe, of God, whatever. And I find a lot of value in that.
Okay, from Natus, thank you for your super chat. What did you find helped you both have meaningful conversations about this very personal stuff without getting offended at each other? This is such a good question.
This is a great question.
Yeah, because we can both talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'll start since you've been talking the whole time. So I discovered eventually that coming at Trevor with arguments was not going to work.
Yeah.
Like coming at him using arguments as like a weapon
Right.
to get him to believe in like God or Christianity, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had to realize was that I needed to do away with that temporarily at least and just focus on loving him as my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I like forgot about trying to get something out of him every time we had a conversation and instead just like, you know, this is my brother, I love him, like let's just go hang out and just
Simple terms.
if we talk about something, it organically comes up, then that's fine and we don't have to get like defensive about it. And so that's what I started to focus on. But another piece of this was I think that defensiveness and anger in conversations, and I noticed this because in the first conversation that we had, I was getting defensive because of how insecure I was in my beliefs about Christianity and what I thought I knew about Christianity. So once I started to understand the role that insecurity plays in getting defensive and angry and upset and loud, once I...
Like what you were trying to do with that?
Well, once I realized that that's what was causing it,
Yeah.
then I determined I'm not going to have any more conversations with you until I like figure that out for myself.
Nice.
And
Wow.
I can stop being defensive.
Yeah.
And that's also like spilled over into the work that I do on this channel.
Yes.
And everything else is like
In life and relationships too, I'm sure.
yeah. I mean, when I notice myself getting upset or angry, I think, okay, this is most likely due to some like insecurity that
Isn't
I
that
have.
funny?
Like I don't know. I don't have all the knowledge about this area, this
Yeah.
particular area. And so this one question that this person asked me like caused me to get super upset and defensive. Not their fault. It's
Right.
my fault
Right.
that I like am so insecure in my beliefs.
Yeah.
And so that has really helped me. Like when we have conversations, I'm no longer like trying
Fired
to
up or
fire.
whatever,
Yeah. We just like talk and
Yeah.
we're both seeking, and so
Yeah.
it's a lot different now. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, we're in a much better position now to have a conversation like this
Yeah.
live with everybody because of where we are.
Yeah.
What are you, respond to that question?
So
too. What helped you, or like?
it's a very, very similar sort of thing. I started taking a really honest look at myself and saying, you know, who is it that I want to be, and what do I, even to the point of like wanting my feelings to be different. For example, I get anxiety and I would get rage. I would get horrible anger that would be bottled up, and I would, you know, what am I saying? Depress them or whatever, suppress them.
You would suppress your
I would
anger.
suppress the anger, and then it would bottle up into these rage moments. And yeah, so taking an honest look at like where that came from and why I was, trying to get this emotion out, and why I felt vindicated in that, and definitely, like you said, the expectations on other people while you're having a discussion. When you answer the bottom line question of what is your intent here with the discussion,
Yeah.
I started to tell myself, you have no obligation to change anybody's mind. You have no obligation to make them see things as I do. You know, I let that go, and I started, and this is practice too, but I started seeing everybody as valuable humans that I'm curious about. And so that opens up people's stories.
See, but a truth like
and it's
that,
gorgeous.
yeah,
I mean,
a truth like that is, I mean, anybody can accept that. You
Exactly.
don't have to be an atheist
No,
or
exactly.
a Christian,
Right.
to just accept that you got to love people and like find curiosity. In,
Yeah,
like, in
totally
in
agree.
humans. I
Yeah,
think
no,
that's
it didn't. I don't know where it came from. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, all right, let's move on to another question because we have a whole lot to get through here. Hawk Girl, did you ever think you had a relationship with Christ, or were you another case of just going through the motions? It's a good question. I've heard a range of Christian experiences. Many are shallow and non-convincing.
Gotcha. So it's a little of both. Mostly, I had a strong relationship with Christ, 100%, And
especially after going to Houston Worship Center.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I was serious about it. Yeah, I rejected all things about the world and about even school. I cut myself off from, not that I even like tried to. Well, I was about to say. Well, anyways, it's a little awkward. I was like.
What are you saying?
All I'm saying is I like didn't have a girlfriend or even friends, like close friends in high school, because I was so convinced that the church life was really the more valuable thing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, actually, I do have a couple of high school friends that I still talk to, and they might be watching. But yeah, it was this thing.
Oh, did you tell them about it?
Told a couple people. I forget if I told Robert.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Continue.
But yeah, so it was this thing where I was very serious about my convictions, mm-hmm. and I wanted to stand by them. But at the same time, I can't say that I read my Bible like a lot or really dove deep into like theology. Like what my interests were, it was tricky. My interests were more music and friends and God, like playing music and having an emotional, spiritual experience were the most amazing times. And I still understand that those were real experiences in their own way. And they were amazing and valuable, but yeah, I guess on a traditional go through the motions sort of stuff, I was bad with a lot of that stuff. But no, I was definitely had a relationship.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's not a question, but a comment. Jay Shy, thank you for your super chat, Jay. Trevor, I recommend Inspiring Philosophy's video on divine hiddenness. So Inspiring Philosophy is a Christian apologist, and he's one of the more popular ones. He has like, I don't know, I haven't checked recently, but I would guess around 150,000 subscribers. So his videos are really good.
Nice.
And he has a video on the question of like, why isn't God more obvious?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, interesting.
Good video, interesting video. You might want to check out. That's all he's trying to say. All right, Adrian Lawson, thank you for your super chat, Adrian. I really appreciate you guys sending in all of these questions as super chat. It really helps me out personally. All right, sorry if repetitive. Is there anything the Bible teaches that would prevent you from becoming a Christian, even if the evidence was fully convincing?
That's interesting. So it depends on if I would go to heaven or hell, I guess. I mean, if I have to go through the motions of believing in a terrible God, then I would, So I don't want to go to hell forever. But if we take out the afterlife and talk about what seems to be working in my life, then I think I would reject Christianity and say that like my life has been better without it, or without claiming only it, I guess. But I don't know. I walked around that question.
This is difficult because it puts two things opposed to each other. It puts truth and what's useful,
right,
or like pragmatic,
right.
It puts those on the opposite ends, and a lot of times we want to put those together. Mm-hmm. Like we want what's useful to be true, what's true to be useful.
Right.
Did you have anything else to say on
I
that?
don't know if I did, yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right, Carmel Crunk, again, thank you for your super chat, Carmel. She says, did the universe come into existence?
Yeah, very interesting one. So, I guess I don't know. I think...
do you think it's been around forever? So, you don't have to say, like, definitive, 100% this happened.
Yeah.
Where would you say you lean? Like, what? Would you lean toward it coming into existence, or would you lean toward it just being here forever?
Yeah,
as a complete non-expert, like both of us.
Right, exactly, yeah. I really just don't know. I mean, I value the evidence of the Big Bang and what we can know from that. And then, of course, there are good theories on the multiverse and the fact that there can be an expansion and then a
contraction.
Over multiple universes or whatever. Like that could be the life span of the universe. I just don't know, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So this is a good one. Also, why do I get Cookie Monster vibes from your beard?
Because I love sweets. Love cookies.
By the way, you're doing an amazing job looking at the camera.
Am I? I feel like I wasn't ever.
Well, sometimes.
Here and there, yeah, sometimes.
Maybe it's because I'm looking, and sometimes you do look up there.
Okay, yeah. I try to, but...
You're like better at this than I am. Okay, Andrew,
now I'm going to. Now I'm like going to stare at it.
Just stare at it the whole time. Awkwardly. All right, Andrew Stone, thank you for your substantial super chat, $20. Explain the North Star constellations always constantly being the same since written history, if not for God. Earth spinning while rotating around the sun is moving through the Milky Way in an ever-expanding universe.
So there really hasn't been a lot of time. I mean, we're talking about written history is like 3,000 years or so. So I just don't think our position in the solar system, in the galaxy is much different than a long time ago. I don't know. I mean,
they're pointing to different features of the universe. They're saying like the sun moving through the Milky Way in an expanding universe. The Earth is spinning or rotating around the sun. One way to ask this is, isn't all of that evidence for God?
I mean, I'm
not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying.
Right. I understand those on a natural level, and I think they're gorgeous nonetheless. And I think we can leave it at that.
All right. Thank you for your super chat. So, Miss Idemir, Trevor, what would you want your Christian family and friends to know when they state their concern for your eternal life, salvation, or damnation? It's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
What would you want your Christian family and friends to know when they state their concern for your eternal life?
I have no idea. It really depends on what you think is going to happen to me. I feel perfectly fine. I feel great. I am happy. I am loving this journey of life. So I'm not worried about the afterlife being torment. So I guess I would say I appreciate. I appreciate your concern, and I understand how real it is. Real it feels, and so to you. But but yeah, I can live without that over my head.
All right, Kim Yule Joseph. Trevor, what do you think about this verse? Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them.
Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them. Very interesting. What do I think about that verse? I think it's beautiful. And that's all I've got. I don't really know what, it's not connecting directly to any sort of, things that I've held on to from other philosophies and religions. So,
I need you to give a 5-minute monologue on this verse right now.
If there was if somebody had a TED Talk like that where they expanded this into meaning something more, I would take that and I'd love it. You know what I mean?
Would, yeah.
That's the thing about it is I can take these things and still like let it sit and let it mean something without forgetting that it's a story also. I don't know.
So this is a comment from one of our supporters. I know that he's one of our supporters. He says, "Thanks for leading Cameron to this life choice. It has been so rewarding to me."
Yeah, I'm really glad that it worked out.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit last night too. It's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's crazy how that one thing has impacted both of our lives so significantly.
Right, for sure. Yeah, it's so a weird thing. I mean, it's even the same as like thinking about my wife. Like we met at Houston Worship Center. And so it's one of those things where you say, oh, if I could go back and change things, would you change anything? Do you regret anything? It's a weird thing to think about because I love where I'm at now. I love my wife. I love it. So you know what I mean? I guess I wouldn't change anything because of how it turned out. But it is still funny looking back in critical terms and thinking, you know, what really could have been different as far as what I'm going to do for my kids or the people around me and the community and my political views and things like that. I can still be critical of that while accepting that it really led to an awesome life. So
we have a lot of people that want to talk more about your views on Eastern religions. So, and
y'all might know more than me. That's the problem. I'm pulling what I want from it.
Yeah, right. You said that you were okay going deeper, though.
Yeah, that's totally cool.
We'll do one more. All right. So this is a super chat. Nail, elbow. Well, it says 50, but I think that's a different currency. So I don't even know how much that amounts to. So, but either way, thank you so much for sending it in either way. So cell, nail, elbow interaction is a false analogy. These aren't conscious free will agents, and no. Watt, Toll, and Co. have no explanation, only emotivism, third eye intuition, and denial of objective material reality.
Cool. I'm not sure. Appreciate it. That's all I've got. I love you.
Okay. Let's do. That's an interesting question. Trevor, why were you named Trevor?
Oh, I think it was from. Oh yeah, it was my mom said it was a movie called Thoroughly Modern Millie, where Trevor was the suave star, and that's the exact opposite of who I feel like I am.
Okay. So Jim Wick, thank you for your super chat. Let's get to it. Why do you put so much confidence in an anti-science interpretation of Genesis that came from people who you felt were poor thinkers and dishonest?
Why do you put so much confidence in an interpretation of Genesis that came from people? Wait, why do I put so much confidence in Genesis?
In the interpretation of Genesis that you believed growing up, that came from people who you thought were poor thinkers and dishonest.
Right. Well, so now I do see it as mythology. Yeah, and I think mythology is amazing.
Well, you said that there are Christians who accept it, that accept evolution.
Yes. And so what I've heard is that the Bible wasn't written all in literal terms, and that it's a lot of storytelling and
there's a lot of different interpretations, but their question is, why do you put, or maybe it's better this way, do you put confidence in like a young earth or a literal interpretation of scripture?
I put no confidence in that.
Then just the interpretation, not like whether or not it's true, but just like what is the right interpretation of this scripture? Do you know what I'm saying?
So like some people, I think the right interpretation is probably that it's a myth. Is that what? Wait, say it again.
That it's literal. Like, okay, so when a lot of Christians just read Genesis, they'll just read it at face value
and say, like, this happened literally.
Yeah, like it was drawing a picture, of exactly what happened. And then other people will say, well, no, there's a whole lot of like metaphor and poetry here, and so it's kind of like pointing to some deeper spiritual truth rather than like depicting actual events or exact historical events that happened. So which interpretation do you think is more likely true?
I think the second one is more likely true.
That's good. So you would be open to a Christian view of science as it relates to like the beginning of the world because of that.
So all that means to me is like another religion saying that the earth was born in this other way. I would accept that as their story as well. That is metaphorical, pointing to deeper truths maybe, and giving some insight into how they understand the birth of the world and universe or whatever. But yeah, no, I put those on the same sort of level as storytelling, mythology. I think my interpretation of a literal Genesis story was wrong as a Christian and is wrong scientifically. So I can, is that it?
Yeah, ish. All right, here's Philip Norris. I think this is.
Oh yeah,
is that
Philip.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, he's one of our people from the church that we used to go to together. He was there back in the day. He says, "Hey Trev, what do you find as the most accessible venue for discovering new info, ideas, and thoughts? Is it technical, bio, or fiction, literature, media?" You've already talked about podcasts.
All over the place. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I love documentaries and podcasts because I'm a lazy learner and I like the high level ideas. I mentioned in the beginning that I am terrible at recall anyways, and I have no profession. I have no YouTube channel where I'm trying to communicate these ideas. So I feel safe just absorbing what I want and what I like and what seems to be true in my life and what seems to be true scientifically. And I mean, I'm just playing with it and I'm letting myself kind of go with the flow. So yeah, it's documentaries, podcasts, sometimes audiobooks and movies or whatever. All sort of storytelling. I mean, even talking to other people and their experiences, I think is important. Watching new movies and TV shows is just like going to a play back in the day that then turned into some great story that can tell us a lot about ourselves. I think seeing this storytelling in humans is really valuable.
This is how many people are watching right now. 475.
Nice. Hello. Cool. Yeah, that's cool. Make it real.
So this was just a random question from somebody, the programmer. Did Cameron come from a fundamentalist background? And so what they mean by that is like, did I come from a background that teaches like young earth creationism? Like yes.
Literal interpretation.
Yeah. So
yeah, for sure, right?
So yeah, for sure. Like we came from a background where it was made fun of in our home, the idea that the earth is millions of years old.
Yes. And that made me not pay attention in a lot of science class. And
yeah,
I mean, I love...
We would come home and get the truth.
Yeah, it's tough. I do love learning now, and I wonder and wish, I guess, that I would have had that younger, but hey, it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Here's a good question. Another one from Carmel. She says,
interesting.
What did you hate about being a Christian?
Interesting. I don't think I hated much. I think it was, I did have pressure to get out of my comfort zone.
Hypocrisy?
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I guess I was feeling like, what did you hate internally about, not so much about Christianity, right? About being a Christian.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good.
So it was like, it was really like reading my Bible. I just didn't enjoy it because I don't think I really got what it was talking about so often. And I just kind of, yeah, I knew I didn't understand so much, to the point where even in conversation, I'd be really like worried and embarrassed to speak on what I thought I knew, because I knew it was probably so wrong. And so I just like observed so often. I just listened. And so, yeah, there wasn't much I hated, but really it was that I couldn't get it all. I don't know. Not much.
All right. Andrew Basham. If you guys could live on another planet in our solar system, which one would you move to and why, assuming they can sustain life?
Well, so that's the thing. I understand Earth to be a paradise planet that we're exactly made for, because we were born from it and evolved to live in this time. So let's protect the climate, everybody. But yeah, so that's the thing, is like, would Mars then just have like a little habitat that we have to live in? Or are we saying it's terraformed and has pretty awesome like features that we could go and explore?
Doesn't have to be terraformed, I don't think. Maybe we could live in like a bubble, an indestructible bubble.
Well, then Earth sounds like the perfect paradise planet for me. I love space. I love thinking about that sort of stuff. But the reality is that those are harsh environments that don't sound very fun. They're for scientific endeavor until we can make them about pleasure. And my life right now really is about like having fun. So that's how we go.
Okay, so my answer to this would probably be Mercury, because I read a book, like a science fiction book one time, and the way that the author described, like, is a scientific book, or is a science fiction book about like, life in 1,000 years from now or something. So terraforming was all over the solar system, and there was even like those kind of halo things.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like that
in space.
In space, that kind of thing. And so
I would do that.
You would do that?
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
yeah, if it looked like Halo, yeah.
That'd be cool. But the way that they described Mercury was they would like wear these suits, and they would go, like, these people would just get lost in themselves wearing these suits that could like dim the light of the sun. So you would like go out in the super harsh climate, and you would basically just stare at the sun for like hours and hours. And that's what this book described. It may not be that way.
Yeah.
But like if you were that close to the sun and you'd have like a visor on, you could see.
I'm pretty sure Mercury is tidally locked, so it like spins and turns with the sun. I could be wrong, or it rotates real slowly, something like that.
Could be Venus then.
Right.
Either Mercury or Venus.
Venus is the one with a bunch of CO2 and like possibility of like floating life was the idea.
Then maybe it was Venus.
No, it might have been. You're thinking of floating?
No, I don't know.
But dude, you reminded me of an awesome movie, Sunshine. Where,
Sunshine was
where
really
they
cool.
like look at the sun and it's kind of consuming them. They're like, oh.
Yeah. So I kind of want to do that, but mainly because I'm like semi-pyromaniac.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Kind of like to look at fire. So that would be probably my answer to that. It's really weird though. So we had a bunch more come in. We'll try to get through a couple of these really quickly, and then we're going to end this stream. So here's one from Called Here. You shared that you had a relationship with Christ. If Christ of the Bible says that we are in him and he is in us, how could you have left him?
So, I mean, with like mystic Christianity, the idea would be that I never left and that he never left and that we are one and that Christ is all of being, and that now I have a different story that I kind of go by and understand this universe to be. So it's one of those things where if your view is that Christ is all things, I could accept that he's still in me and I'm still in him. But once again, I kind of point that to not literally a story. I point that to it not being literally true, but accepting that the perception of that story being true still can mean a lot. And
All right, let's move on. We'll try to get through these quickly. From Lucas Cram, hey Trevor, has living in California affected your beliefs in any way, independently of actual truth? As a traditional Catholic living in California, it seems the environment here is incredibly conducive to conformity.
Interesting. Conformity. I had a different experience. I felt more free to express myself and be who I wanted to be. Yeah, we felt the judgment every time we would. And look, you come back to Texas and you naturally see people kind of judging people for what they wear, but clearly in San Francisco, that is like just not a thing. You see weird looking people everywhere you go, and guess what? You can love them, you can smile, you can make positive assumptions about who they are, and that's not always the case in Texas and a lot of other places. So I found it being very liberating to live there and live with people that had similar ideologies and really just cared about nature and other people and things like that. I found a lot of value in the people there for sure.
All right, so here's a question from Matt Boyer, and I'll try to make this quick. So he says, what are your thoughts toward the historical evidence for the resurrection? And so I was not in possession of this when we had our initial talks, but if I could boil it down to something really quick and then just get your initial thoughts on it, it would be something like this. So we have really good historical evidence that the original people who were there had some kind of experience of Jesus risen from the dead. And so they either it was a hallucination or something, but they had some experience that Jesus rose from the dead after being killed, and he was there with them after he was dead. And so then the question is, how do we explain those experiences? Do we say that it's hallucinations? And the response to that is that a lot of these experiences are described as being in groups. So in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul describes how there was 500 people that saw Jesus at once. And so the response to the hallucination explanation is that it's just really unlikely that groups, because you can't have a hallucination with your friend. You're going to be experiencing two different things.
Well, people on drugs have hallucinated the same sort of things.
But the same sort of thing is not the same exact thing.
No, DMT people have described the same little being. So I guess at the end of the day, I don't know. I think that's fascinating. It, I guess, could be miraculous, but I don't know.
Yeah, and we don't want to conjoin to that they were on drugs.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I'm saying that it's possible in some way that probably matches physics. I'm just saying, I don't see miracles all the time, and so
yeah,
they're hard to believe. They're hard to believe.
Okay, let's move on. We're trying to get through these quickly, and this was not meant to be a debate or anything like that. So we're just scratching the surface on a lot of this stuff. Gina M, thank you for your super chat. Man, they keep coming in, so we'll try to get through these as quickly as we can. You've talked a lot about science, but what do you think in general of the use of logical arguments for the existence of God?
I mean, I don't know. None of them have really convinced me. So what do I think of them? I don't think they're true or consistent. Normally, in my case, I get stopped at the first or second point, and I don't accept that most of the time.
And then you stop.
And and then I can't continue on if I can't accept that first or second point. So that's normally what it is. And yeah, it's just never really shaken me or whatever.
All right, Philip Norris sent in another one. He said, by the way, watching from Russia.
Oh, nice. I will. Thanks, Philip.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, we'll try to get through a couple more of these. Adrian Lawson, do you see any benefits to being religious? It seems as religiosity decreases in our generation, people attach in religious ways to other things like politics, career, which can be negative.
Yeah, really interesting. I think it's complex. We all kind of have to find our way and our balance of of how you're going to live with all of these things and your ideas. And so I can see that some people find major benefits in religion. Absolutely. So I think it can lead to a lot of blind spots too, though, where if you have the singular truth, you are cutting yourself off, or I mean, generally and often, you are cutting yourself off from other things that you could grow from. And so that's really where, I mean, right when I became an atheist, it was about all of the differences. It was about all of the problems. I wasn't looking at the fact that people benefit from religion in certain ways. And so it's that they're both real. It's that those are both realities. And so I think it's a matter of each person trying to find their way. And for some people, that is no religion. And for some people, that is some sort of religion or a mixture.
All right, here's one from Roleplay Cafe. Trevor, do you think the view that the Old Testament God is cruel makes most Christians question their belief in God? Did this affect your change in your worldview?
Yeah, that was part of it, because I just didn't see the consistency on like who the person of God was and what his intentions were for the world and what his plans were, and they were very, very different from Old to New Testament. I mean, as far as I could tell. So yeah, certainly if we didn't have a New Testament and I had to look at that God and say like, do I want to worship him? That would be tough. So. But that wasn't really the major part of it, I don't think. It was definitely more upfront hypocrisy that I saw in the church or Christianity, and then evolution and other scientific sort of explanations of the universe. That all solidified it for me, really.
All right, here's the last question we'll take today. Russell Jones, thank you for sending this one in, Russell. He says, have you ever stopped and just written down arguments and premises, assigned a number to how much evidence they provide, and put a number to your belief or disbelief?
Interesting. I have thought about it for a long time, that I would write out my ideas, because when you have complex ideas, it's like hard to keep them straight. And so I like those bigger questions. I like those bigger discussions. And when I discuss it with people, a lot of times I'm just like finding my way by the going with the flow. But I think it would be valuable if I were to write out my ideas to at least understand them for myself and see where they're not consistent or where there's flaws and where I'm like, I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I can't explain it. So clearly I don't, I think that could be valuable. And I've actually been thinking about that lately, but it's one of those things where, man, for the past few years, I didn't see it as my place or worth it to try and express these big ideas as I was searching for them. I'm like, what am I going to teach people if I post on Instagram some idea, thoughts and feelings, religious or political or whatever? I stopped myself for years because I'm like, first off, I'm still learning. Secondly, are people do people care about what I have to say about anything? So let me work on myself. Sort of like it's just a separate thing. But now I think it would be valuable just for me, even if it's not shared. So anyways.
Okay. A couple more questions.
Okay. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. So Lucas Cram, and this is following up from the previous question that he asked. Following up question. Have you considered that Christian folks growing up in California feel the same way you felt growing up in Texas, but in reverse? What would you say to that? Just curious. Thanks for coming on the show.
I mean, I felt no. I was an atheist when I moved to California, but I didn't see or experience. My wife's a Christian, and she didn't experience any sort of, She didn't experience any sort of judgment from people there as a Christian. People have weird freaking ideas there. They have all the sorts of religions and
are you out of water?
Mystic stuff. I am.
Let me get some more for both of us.
And so I don't doubt that can be. Why am I moving that? I don't doubt that can be true for sure. That Christians in California can feel separated from the collective consensus, the collective ideology. But I have to say, I felt openness from the people there as to believe what you want, believe what you think is real, and be a good person, and let people be who they are. It's about tolerance and acceptance and openness to each other as valuable humans. And so that was the vibe I got. I mean, I'm sure I was exaggerating it for being in California. It's just gorgeous. But I got to say, all the friends I made there were great people. And so it was cool.
Someone asked if we could keep going. What do you think? Are you feeling...
Yeah, we can keep going.
Okay, maybe for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Well, this one, I mean, if no one sends any more super chats in, this might also be a good one to end on too. John Robertson, I know he's a skeptic or an atheist. He says, I recommend that you and Cameron come together every month or 3 and do one of these chats, perhaps discuss current events, religiosity, or something else.
Yeah, that's an idea. One thing that I am also always like careful of is that I'm not a speaker of any kind for any subject. So it's like I can have these ideas I can have these religious ideas and political ideas and scientific ideas that I have absorbed from people that I think are trustworthy and have shared consistent information that I've gleaned. But when I spit that back out, I'm like not very confident in the accuracy.
Well, I just don't think that either of us,
what would be,
I just don't think we're like naturally articulate.
Yeah. I have to work at it. I have to like
really
play it in my head constantly for what I think. And yeah, it's tough. So it's not natural, but hey, appreciate that you like this enough for that. And I appreciate how this has been going. So it's not that I won't ever do it again, but I would put it in clear terms as far as like, I can answer these questions for myself and my experience, but when you start to have these arguments that I'm like not engaged with and don't feel an obligation to find an answer to, then that's where it kind of falls flat. And I would be okay with saying, I don't know, I give up, I would rather be chilling on my couch or something.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think part of what's behind this comment is that I think you're going to appeal to a lot of the skeptical audience that watches.
Gotcha.
Because we have a sizable amount. Like I know that there are atheists currently watching this. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are probably atheist channels who are going to take this particular thing and like talk about it on their channels.
All right.
So that's why I think that it's going to appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so,
I mean, I can be back. I will be back, but yeah, I would just worry about saying, we're going to talk about current events. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about freaking, I don't know, all these things. So yeah, I can talk about myself.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. So this has been a lot of fun. What have you thought about it?
I have appreciated all the questions, and think it went well.
Yeah, we were both nervous.
Yeah,
for no reason,
dude. I
just because it's new and it's like live.
Well, even
you're probably not used to having 400 people watching.
No, not at all. Yeah,
like
and
listen to you
and so much of it is like having a good understanding of like who I am. That doesn't come without really trying to find yourself and like searching. And then being able to communicate that is kind of another step in and of itself. And so it's taken a long time. And I think that that's what we talked about is that a year or two ago, it might not have worked in this way. So I think we're at a good place to be able to communicate in clear ways and have respect for each other and love for each other. And so, yeah, I appreciate all the questions were out of a place of just kindness and cordialness. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and wanting to... Yeah, they were. Is that what you're saying? Like the questions were coming out of... Yeah, good place.
Appreciate you guys. Nice
yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. We will see you guys later. And... Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that...
Bye.
Bye.